Welcome back to Danny Rants. Across from me, I have prolific Australian drummer, Dan Kerby. We went back and forth on what I was going to call him, but that's what we agreed on. How are you today, Dan?
Hey, brother. How you going?
I'm good, man.
I don't mind that word. That's a nice introduction, my friend.
Yeah, you like it?
Yeah,
Better
I love
than the
it.
other
I
ones
love
I was tossing around earlier?
Yeah. Yeah, it's much better than that one. So, mate, stoked to be here.
Yeah, I'm stoked to have you here.
I'm in your DMs, obviously telling you I've been watching all your episodes and blah, blah, blah. So, mate, I've seen them all.
Yeah, it's mad. That's good then.
Yeah.
Maybe we can reference back to some.
Absolutely. Mate, test me out.
Yeah. We'll do a Q&A at the end.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So today, I want to talk about you, not me, for once.
Yeah.
So basically, I'd love you to do a little intro of like what you've done, I guess, and like who you've played with and whatnot.
Yep.
And then we'll sort of start to go into the next part after that.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah. So obviously drummer, as you know. My main kind of gig, I guess, would be Bliss and Esso. Been with them for about 10 years. Played with 28 Days for about 10 years as well. Behind Crimson Eyes, like a emo screamo band. They were my first kind of band that was known. Played for Masked Wolf on the Jimmy Fallon Show. You know Harry.
Yeah,
you know those guys. And a few others. Played with Conrad Tool.
Yeah.
So quite a few good gigs. Oh, Unwritten Law, my favourite band.
I can't wait to get into that one because they're also one of my favorite bands too.
Yeah. Are they really?
Yeah, seriously.
Sick. Okay, legend.
So I've been like, when they come out, I know they're here recently, I saw them at Lilydale, New York. And then prior to that, I'd seen them at the Corner.
Did you see him at was that the Outside Festival? Was that Hotter Than Hell? Or was that? Okay. So
yeah, I saw them at the Corner, would have been like 6-7 years ago.
Yeah,
But
nice.
I grew up on Unwritten Law like heavily.
So did I, man.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
So we'll start. I want to get there. So let's go back to
Did you know I played drums for them or not until I said something?
No, not until you did. And then I was like,
cool.
what the fuck? So but like, I guess you're like, oh, do you know Unwritten Law? But in my head, when I saw that, I was like, you're kidding. That's awesome.
Yeah, fuck, that's great.
So they're going back, right? So you've played drums. Like, where do you start? Like, what makes you get into drums? Why did you decide to start playing drums? And then how did you get into your first proper band?
Yeah, sweet. I'll keep it short because I could yabber on forever about that. Basically, my dad was a drummer.
Yep.
And I just went to his gigs, saw him playing at home. But I've been playing drums since I was born, basically, like forever. Hitting the drums from then onwards. And I'd be quite comfortable just sitting in the garage, just playing drums forever,
Even now?
Just, mate, frother.
Yeah.
Frother. Like when I get new drums, like I'll lay on the ground and just look at them, from different angles and you know what I mean? Like big frother on the kit. But anyway, from that, I just kind of met some kids in high school. Andy, my best mate still to this day, he was a cool punk rock kid, introduced me to punk rock, The Offspring, Blink-182, Unwritten Law, that kind of stuff. And
then
peak that time. That's when that music was peaking. Got into that, realized that what I could do could be useful in a band setting, obviously. I just played drums for fun. Didn't even think about being in a band. And then literally from like 12 years old to now, it's just been
whole life
trying to figure it out and do it, you know what I mean?
And so were you in bands in high school and stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'd play at the Assembly, me and a couple of the boys, bit of Blink-182, just covers. Blink, Unwritten Law, all the stuff that I still listen to.
And so I noticed before you said Behind Crimson Eyes was sort of your first big band.
Yeah.
How did you get into that? Like, how did that start?
Yep. So I was in a local band, the same band I started in year 7. We kind of just worked on it through the years. And we would play at Corova Lounge in Ballarat.
Yeah,
that was our local spot. I'm from Ballarat.
Are you from Ballarat?
Yeah, I'm a Ballarat boy. Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
I was thinking when you said that, I'm like, that's a weird spot to go
Ballarat
to.
boy. So
man, what a venue that joint is. Oh, it was,
Cracker. Yeah. So we just play with this, like the touring bands that would come through would be the opening support.
So when you were under 18?
Oh, no, under 18, man, I was doing underage gigs.
Freezes and stuff like that?
Yeah, stuff like that. And then kind of when we got to like 17, 18, we were doing like proper bars. We would just, our mates would come and watch us. So we'd sell an extra 50, 100 tickets. So if a band was coming through and they still had 100 to sell, they'd put us on and they'd probably sell it out. So that was kind of how that started. Just like a little bars of just us bringing our mates to shows and putting on a pretty good show.
And what was the name of the band at the time?
It's called Perfect Reason. There's some videos online.
Yeah?
There's some good songs. Yeah.
So and then how did you evolve from Perfect Reason?
Okay, so then Behind Crimson Eyes were on a tour. Their drummer had left, and I wrote to their booking agent, Scott McKenzie at Premier. He's still their booking agent. I was like, hey, man, who's playing drums for Behind Crimson Eyes? Like, I'm in the opening band. He's like, yeah, good question. No one. Sweet. Let's go.
So then, right time, right place.
Yeah, so then I sent them some videos I'd previously shot. Like I kind of put together like an EPK, it was called back in the day. It was just basically a video of me drumming. So like just showing off how I play and whatnot, because I thought this might lead to something. Like early YouTube days, like 2008 maybe, before YouTube was really blowing up.
Yep.
And I had that in my pocket, showed them, and they took me on, and that was that.
So what? So you played the first gig and then you just continue on after that?
Pretty much, yeah. Had like a, had a rehearsal with them, and just it worked. And then they were like, yeah, sweet, let's go.
How was that going from support to them playing for a band that you were supporting? Obviously, you were a fan of them.
Oh, mate.
How was that?
Yeah, it was funny because I'd seen the singer Josh at a nightclub, Bang.
Yeah, I know.
Familiar with those types of
Yeah,
clubs?
of course.
Yeah.
I used to run nights at Flat Out.
Really?
Yeah.
The same venue?
Same venue, but
Different
they were
night.
like techno events and stuff like that.
Yeah, sick.
I had this one that was called Lockdown. It was like a jail rave. Remember how it was all jails and stuff in there? So we used to do heaps of stuff there. I did heaps of like massive like international artists, and I still do work with them now to this day.
It's a good venue.
Now it's called Birch Street Courtyard. Sick venue.
Yeah, sick.
Sick owners too.
Yeah. I was saying I met Josh there. Like I saw him. I had a few beers and I was like, oh man, that's a singer from BCE. Went up and slightly punished him, Hey man, how you going? Fucking, you're sick, as you do when you're 18 or whatever. And then, so I mean that was a good learning curve for me. Like, because I was aware of them. They'd toured with everyone like Iron Maiden, Avenged Sevenfold, Bullet for My Valentine, The Used, Taste of Chaos, Big Day Out. They'd done a lot already. So for me to kind of jump into that was like, I can't believe.
Yeah, this is pinch yourself sort of moment.
Yeah. Especially when you're such a frother.
How old were you? But we all are though. That's the thing, man. Like with music people, I know you use that term, you use it twice now.
Yeah.
But like when I first started going out too, and now I'm not. Yeah, like I'm actually the polar opposite these days. Like I'm too awkward to go even ask someone for a photo.
Yeah.
Because I'm so like wary of it.
Yeah.
But like I started out the same. Yeah. Like we all did. It's like you can't not be a frother when you start out because you're so passionate. Like that's what gets you into music in the first place.
Exactly.
So
and there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually a really good thing to be.
I'd just see DJs. I remember like in a food court in Chadston, there was a guy called Adam Bartis, like back in, and I was like, what the fuck? It's Adam Bartis. Now he's a good friend of mine, but it was at the time I was just a mad frother. Yeah, exactly the same as you say.
Yeah, 100%. And I actually saw Behind Crimson Eyes before we played with them as well. I actually bought a ticket at Corova Lounge and went and watched them. And I remember I watched them and their drummer was sick. His name was Cam, and he was like a young prodigy. He might have been 19 when he joined the band. And there's an album called Revelation for Despair. Yep. And the drums on that are unbelievable. Like to this day, they hold up as probably some of the best drumming in that genre of music that's come out of Oz.
Yeah, wow.
I remember watching him play and just like, oh, fuck, that guy's, he had his top off, like just ripping.
Just being cool.
Just ripping.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that's the next level.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, that was really cool. That was a big step up. And then I've been doing that forever. We're about to go on tour again. So we have like years of where we lay dormant.
Oh, you're going back on tour with them
We're
still?
going back on tour with Behind Crimson Eyes. So the band still exists. We just haven't, like we played maybe 7 years ago. We did the Unify Festival.
Yep.
And we toured with Alexis on Fire, a big band from Canada.
Yeah, I know that, yeah.
And then,
like Kasabian sort of vibe,
yeah,
right?
we've all got kids and stuff. So we kind of just chill. And then we're going out with Story of the Year and Census Failed. Yeah, sick bands. So,
and what kind of venues were you playing for?
Forum, Roundhouse, Tivoli, Freo. What's the one in Freo?
Can't remember.
Metro.
Either.
Anyway, but good sized venues. So it should be sick.
How old were you when you first started playing with them?
Probably like 21, 22.
Yeah.
So I was still, from high school to then, I was giving it a crack with my band. Like we moved to Melbourne. We lived in a house together. We would rehearse at night. We were just in Gowan Ray, like Airport West.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like after dinner, we'd have like we'd had our banner in the house, all of our gear cranked up to 11, just going berserk for a couple of hours. Like, could you imagine living next to
full band?
like, yeah, man, like so annoying for the neighbours. But yeah, we were going hard.
How were those days for you? Like, would you look back at them now nostalgically, like they were some of the best? Or
yeah, they were fun. It was fun. It was fun figuring it out. Facebook was new then. I remember we recorded, and the woman we recorded with, she was like, there's this thing called Facebook, you need to get onto it and write to these bands and whatnot. So it wasn't kind of like today where you can reach out to people easily.
Yeah.
Like the bands and stuff you listen to, as you know from back in the day, like you'd see.
it was impossible.
Yeah, it's like, how do you get on?
When I started doing events, you had to have the phone numbers. Like it was, even people had MySpace, but they didn't check their messages.
Yeah.
I didn't even know if they even had messages.
Yeah,
back
MySpace.
then.
Behind Crimson Eyes were massive on MySpace. They were like,
That whole scene was there, right?
I remember reading in the Herald Sun, like Behind Crimson Eyes had the 7th biggest MySpace account in Australia. It was like them, the Veronicas, and some other people. And then I joined the band. I was like, fuck, my band's like 7th biggest MySpace band in Oz. This is weird. This is fucking sick.
Until it lived for like 3 years and it just disappeared.
Yeah, it's done. It means nothing, But yeah, man, I mean.
So any of those boys go on to do anything else that you were in that original band with?
In Behind Crimson Eyes?
Nah, so the original band you're in. Like
the original band. Yeah, I mean, I'm still best mates with Andy, the singer, and he's like big in gyms, and now he's big in like business coaching and things like that. So he's kind of moved his music and passion for doing things in a different lane, but kills it. Really kills it. So he's firing still.
That's awesome. Just to have that connection. Hey,
that's cool, man, because he was kind of like the first guy I met, or first friendship I had, you know, where we were working on something together, which is very important, because if you don't have someone that's kind of maybe your age that's working on something with you, I think it would be a lot harder. Like, because we could bounce things off each other, you know, like.
You can be delusional together in a sense.
Even like doing gigs, or, you know, you cop a bit of shit from some people. Oh, what are you guys doing? You guys suck or whatever. You can't. It's good to have someone in your corner going, no. Let's keep going. Let's try this. Let's try this.
That's really good advice. Hey, it's so true too.
Yeah, it was good. It was.
I can't imagine, like, you're right. Like when you're doing something different or off the cast, people are constantly they're throwing mud at you.
Yeah, always.
And so if you're solo by yourself, and so they throw mud at you till you make it.
Yeah.
And then no one throws mud at you.
And then
everyone congratulates you and tells the people they know you.
Exactly.
But it's like during that period when you're coming up, it's difficult. Yeah. And it's even you're facing, like, you know, family problems. Like even family saying, like, what are you doing? Grow up, get a real job. Well, I'm sure you heard those sort of things too.
Even like being kids in Ballarat, like punk rock music wasn't like popular. It wasn't cool really. It was definitely like a little niche to the side. You know what I mean? So even to just kind of do that and have someone in your corner that was driving it with you, that was cool, you know?
Yeah.
That was a big thing.
That's mad.
So yeah, it's kind of interesting to see, you know, he's taken that in his own direction and I've kind of taken it in my own direction.
For sure.
Yeah.
So go your Crimson Eyes, right?
Yep.
Firstly, before I move on to the other stuff you've done.
Yep.
What was the first biggest gig you played where you were like, fuck me, like this is unbelievable?
Yeah, so what it was Pushover. Remember that festival?
Yeah, Pushover Festival, at Luna Park?
Yeah.
I remember,
we did that and it was crazy. I'd never done a gig like that before. Everyone was like, just the crowd was involved. It was probably like 1,000
Who was on it?
people.
It was like Friends of Rhyme, Jebediah, stuff like that?
It was all those kinds of bands. I can't remember who played the year we played.
I'm pretty sure it was all the Aussie icon ones.
Yeah, it is, yeah. But that was probably the first cool gig I did with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I did a lot more since. But
how old do you reckon you were then?
Maybe 22.
Yeah, fuck, that's young to be able to do that. That'd have been so sick.
It was cool.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. It was sick.
So then where do you progress from there? So Crimson Eyes, as you said, they're still together.
Crimson Eyes, and then on to 28 Days, punk rockers.
Yeah, I know who that is too,
Everybody rip it up, you know. Fuck, I used to listen to them too, and I'd go and watch them before I played for them. Like, we were playing shows with them, and then they needed a drummer, and they basically just asked if I could play. And then I've played with them for a long time, man, like up till pretty much last year. To the point where I was always just playing with B&E. So when they had a gig, I was always playing with Bliss and Esso. And it kind of got to the point where it was a bit of a joke, like I could just never play. And now my mate Lonnie's playing for them, which is cool. And I might still jump back in at some point and play too.
Yeah, cool.
But, so yeah, kind of went from BC, Behind Crimson Eyes, into 28 Days. And that was cool, different again, like a different kind of thing.
Genre too.
Yeah, kind of different genre and a different type of band and a different type of legacy, I guess. Like they were massive in the early 2000s.
Yeah, of course.
So, you know, they still pull numbers kind of everywhere they go. Even like regional, they do well. So that was kind of cool to see that. Mate, and then if we continue on, Bliss and Esso was next, and that was about 10 years ago. And
so, because I know you mentioned Scott from Premiere before.
Yeah.
He's still involved in their journey. Is that the connection there?
Yes, well, part of it. So Scott did... Behind Crimson Eyes, he did 28 Days. They do a lot of the rock acts in Oz, as you know. Scotty doesn't book Bliss and Esso.
But Premier is still...
It's still
the
part
same
of the
family, yeah.
Same family. That didn't really have much, I don't think, to me getting the gig. I had a lot of people that knew Bliss. There was a guy, Jason, who's a DJ, played with DJ Bags. He worked at Monster. He knew Bliss. It's like, hey, you should get DK. There was a guy, Dave Alice at Monster, our events manager. He was like, you should get DK. There was Alan Hardy, a video director who worked for Bliss and Esso full time at that time. He also did some extreme sports with me at Monster. He was like, you should get DK. There's like numerous people getting in his ear. Oh, my mate Will Kendall, who owned a clothing company, Third Chapter.
Yep. I've met him a few times.
He was getting in his ear. So there's lots of like, should get this guy, should get this guy, should get this guy. Enough for him to kind of like, okay, he must be an all right bloke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird, hey, like in this industry, like how often that happens. Like even when I met you, so for anyone, well, no one would know because they don't know our story.
Yeah.
But I met you on tour with an artist called Melbourne. He was the guy that I managed, and then I randomly became the support DJ because on the first night in Torquay, I don't even remember, but the DJ didn't turn up.
Yeah.
So I ended up becoming the support DJ for the support artists on the Bliss and Esso tour.
Yes.
And that's how we became friends.
Exactly.
And I met your crew. But again, after that, still continue. Like I'll be like, people are like, oh, you know DK, you know DK, you know DK.
Yeah.
It's like it happens so often in this industry.
Yeah.
It's like once you have one touch point, it kind of keeps going and going and going.
100%.
Because we're this small little ecosystem where everyone knows everybody sort of, be it like, like you said before, like a guy who owns a clothing brand or works in music or even if he's like has a gym, for whatever reason, it seems to be the same circles everyone's sort of swimming around in.
100%. It's, like we have a lot of mutual friends that I just know that we haven't even spoken about. But I know you know them and I know them. But that stuff always comes in handy. Like I was talking about Alan Hardy. He worked for Bliss and Esso as their video director. He did a lot of clips and stuff. He called me up maybe like 2 years, 2021, and he's like, oh, I've got a massive TV show I want you to be involved with. It's a song, Astronaut in the Ocean, Masked Wolf.
Which was the #1 streamed song in 2020.
Yeah.
So I'm friends again. We're talking about that whole connection, but I'm friends with his manager and team, the record label, who I do a lot of work with.
Yep.
And that song is actually insane. So it came out a year before it blew up. And then someone did a video, I think it was like a famous basketball NRL player or something like that, went viral on TikTok, and then it became the #1 streamed song in the world in 2020 from memory.
Yeah.
Like, don't quote me on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then you ended up doing the Jimmy Fallon live.
Yes.
Which is probably a pretty iconic moment. Like, how did that all come about?
Unbelievable. So the video director was pitching for it. So he was pitching to Masked Wolf's team.
And this is mid-COVID too, wasn't it?
Mid-COVID. So we couldn't go overseas because you just couldn't get there. So it was to be shot locally. And I think, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 companies pitched to do the clip or whatever. And Alan called me and asked if I could do it. And kind of wrote me into the pitch. He's like, I've got this drummer, I've got this cool kit that lights up. So he kind of wrote me into his pitch to Masked Wolf's team. And then funnily enough, Jay, Masked Wolf's manager, when he saw it, he's like, oh, DK, I know DK. I saw him play drums at the Supercross because I did a drum off with Ben Gordon from Parkway Drive at the Supercross. And Jay's like, oh, yeah, I know who that is. Yeah, he's cool. Let's get him.
Yeah.
So it all kind of comes back around, and
100%.
Yeah.
It's so odd. That I can still remember it now. Like that, how you had there was like water on the ground or something like that.
Yeah.
And then it was like the reflection was coming into the thing. Like
it was unbelievable, that clip.
Yeah, and how, like when to explain it again, it was like they sort of had reflection. You were playing the drums. Masked Wolf, I was going to say his real name, but he's standing at the front and he was playing, but it was like this real visual audio, like an audio thing.
Yeah.
Was it one take? Did it go for ages? Like, how was it?
Yeah, so that was, so I think we did maybe like, I don't know, 10 takes or something like that. But yeah, we were actually playing in water. There was maybe like 5-6 inches of water. We were in a man-made pool essentially. And then like a giant screen behind us that moved with the cameras. It was like this new technology, like to kind of make it look real. Like, you know what I mean? Like a screen, like the camera moves, the background moves with it type thing. But yeah, that was stressful, man, because the drum part for that was the most insane thing I'd pretty much had to learn. So,
yeah, and who curated it?
Yeah, so there's a guy called Adam Blackstone who's like the best MD in the world, pretty much. Like he does all the Super Bowls, like literally wins Grammys and
from overseas.
Yeah, from the US. So they hired him to kind of musical direct the live version, and then he either wrote the drum part or got a drummer to create it. I think it was a guy called Brian Fraser Moore, who's like Pink's drummer. I'm pretty sure he did it. And then they just kind of sent it to me, and they're like, "Oh, can you learn this?" And like, I immediately was like, "This is like world class. Like, who's done this? This is ridiculous." And then Alan's like, "You can play it, right?" And I was listening to it, going, "Fuck, I don't know if I can." I was like, "Yeah, mate, yeah, absolutely. Nah, easy work, mate, easy work." And I'm going, "Fuck, I've only got 8 hours to learn this."
Oh, we really had 8 hours?
Oh, I probably had maybe a day or something.
Crazy.
Yeah. But I got there in the end.
Yeah. So what? So there was, because normally it would be live, right?
Normally it would be live. Yeah. I don't know if I'm like, talking out of cheek or whatever here. But yeah, with something like that, you generally pre-record it. And then they just shoot it a bunch of different ways and use a bunch of different angles to kind of put it all together.
So it's still kind of a live performance, but it's like, it's same, like most things, Yeah,
but it's done like 10 times and, just the nature of that
exactly
type of clip. At that point with COVID, you'd remember they were doing a whole bunch, like artists were doing a whole bunch of clips like out in nature and things like that. Because
like
you
the
couldn't
Rufus
do
Joshua
gigs.
Tree stuff.
Yeah, people started getting like creative with it.
Basically.
So it was that kind of vibe. Would have been sick to go to the States and do it there, obviously. But yeah, so that was crazy though, man. It was a super expensive shoot. I know that.
Yes, I know that also.
And the pressure on my end, if I don't deliver, say we do it 10 times and I'm stuffing it up, like they can't use the shots of me in the background playing the wrong thing. So it was actually really, really hard because you have to nail it. There's no like room for making things up or playing things a little differently. If I'm hitting something that's not in the audio, game over. That shot's done. You've got to reset it. And like they pour what's the smoky stuff? Dry ice.
Yeah, dry ice.
Pouring dry ice in. So you got to get the cameras back, and then you got to pour the dry ice. You got to reset the clip. You got to, there's a lot going into it. It's not just start.
Yeah, there's visual, there's cues, there's like it's not just like
on.
bashing the drums. Like
Heaps going on. So that was, epic.
Yeah,
epic
it was. And it looked epic too.
It was unbelievable, man.
Yeah,
so
100%.
sick.
I'm going to put it in the comments below because I don't want to put it in the video because I'll get done for
copyright
copyright or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I'll add it to the comments below. So going back, the Bliss and Esso thing, so they've decided they're going to get you involved. And you said you've been with them for close on a decade or a decade?
Yeah, just over a decade, just ticked over.
Yeah, so you sort of, how does that all transpire? How does it go ahead? And then I guess, what's it been like since?
Yeah, oh mate, unbelievable. Every gig, banger. Never done a bad gig.
Yeah, those guys are pretty high energy. Like probably one of the best live acts I've seen.
Yeah, unbelievable. Every gig's just off its head. But mate, that's been an unbelievable gig to get. They did a big outdoor tour, so they took their own tour around. It was like a festival. And I just remember like the show we did in Sydney was the third show we did. So the first two shows were a little smaller. And then we did a big show at Sydney. And I just remember rocking up to the venue just in disbelief, like that this is their show. Like, I've been used to playing in clubs, bars, 400 people, 1,000 people is a big one. Roll into this and there's like 10,000 people there just to see B&E. It's like, fuck, this is unbelievable. Like I'd go and watch the support band. We played at River Stage in Brisbane, and I remember just, you can go up the top and look out over the whole crowd. It's like an amphitheatre. I remember just going up there watching the crowd, just in disbelief that this is someone's gig.
And it's something you never get over, hey? Like,
just like, I can't believe that this is just your gig.
Yeah,
like,
but those guys, like you, obviously as well as I do, but like they got the most diehard audience ever.
Yeah.
So I've never seen, like I know a lot of the guys throughout that team, and it's like, it's just insane. Like you go to those gigs and every single person's in merch. And like every single person singing every single word. And that's what makes them so good. Like I know when we went on tour, I had the opportunity to sort of be a part of it. It was the most finely tuned process I'd ever seen. And like the team from, like yourself, Tyler, the boys, it's just so fucking perfect.
Yeah.
And it's actually insane to watch it. It's like, and then on top of that, you got this crowd who are just I would say, like they're diehard.
Yeah,
like you've never seen anything like it. I've never seen anything like that in Australia anyway.
Yeah, like when we play like
Taylor Swift fans almost.
Yeah, like from the minute we come out, it's on.
Yeah.
To the very end. And I think, and still to this day, it's like that. Like we just played in Tassie at the Forth pub, which is, Forth is a suburb. Have you ever heard of Forth?
No, never.
Okay, it's a suburb 15, 20 minutes out of Devonport. So, and we're not on a tour. Like we're off cycle right now. So we kind of got approached to do this show. It's Forth pub, and Bliss calls me. He's like, "Oh, we're doing a show at this place called Forth in Tassie." I'm like, "Never heard of it. Like, what are we doing that for?" He's like, "Sold out in 2 hours, and we haven't even posted it." It was like 1,000 tickets, bang. So they did another one, sold another one out. So they sold 2,000 tickets in a place that has 800 people live there.
Wow.
Yeah, still to this day. And it's not off the back of like a new record or anything like that. We played in Great Keppel Island maybe like a month ago, which is so hard to get to. You got to go, you got to fly to Rockhampton, drive for an hour to a place called Yeppoon.
Yep.
And then catch a ferry from Yeppoon to the island. It's about a 40-minute ferry ride.
I saw all this stuff when you guys were there.
Sold it out. It's like 2,000 people, the most people they've ever had on the island at a gig. And again, not off the back of an album or anything like that, just a show. Still to this day, like pulling numbers like that in random spots in Oz is that hard.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's not many artists doing that, like one after another. How many gigs are you playing a year with them?
Depends. Like if we do an album, then we do a tour after that. Maybe like...
And that's another one too, is like when you guys go on tour, like I know when you were in Melbourne, there was like 7 shows in 7 days.
Yeah,
like,
it was... Mate,
you don't do like a normal tour, it's one per city, yeah.
Yeah. And they can play anywhere and everywhere, and it always, people always show up. But yeah, maybe like 50 or 60, you know.
So close on almost every week you're playing with them.
Pretty much, but that would condense down to like a few months. Like that last tour we did might have been, I don't know, 4 months or something like that.
Yeah.
And then we'll kind of have one-offs afterwards until the next record comes out.
So how do you go, like this is really off cusp, but like off, because I want to stay on track with this other things I want to go through, but like I know you got a son and you got a wife.
Yep.
How do you go being a traveling musician with a family? Like I travel a lot and people ask me that question, but like when you're a traveling musician, like, and you're doing, you know, you're talking 50, 60 shows a year, maybe more, because I know you work with other bands.
Yep.
How do you go with that?
It's probably similar to you. It's not as bad as it sounds. It's not like I'm going to America for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, you know. I'm just going to Queensland for 4 days and then I'm back for 3 days. Then New South Wales for 3 days, then I'm back for 4 days, and then I'm in Vic, so I'm coming home every night. So it's it's fine, you know. It's all right. It's my missus probably gets, she's the real hero.
Yeah,
you know?
of course.
She's the real hero holding
mine.
it down. But I'm lucky because she does, you know, like it's really important to have that at home. Like
100%.
Yeah.
And that's another one too, is like when you talk about like passion, like I know a lot of people who kind of went along their journey and they may not have had a supportive partner, so therefore they weren't able to live their dream.
Mate,
and every single person I know who lives their dream, who does have a partnership or kids or whatever, the one thing they all have in common is that they have these amazing women behind them. Yeah. Because they have to. They have to have a woman that believes in, or a partner I should say, that has to believe in you and your delusional vision that points, like to kind of support you, because like otherwise it's not possible, right?
Yeah, 100%. And they've got to listen to you talk about it all the time.
Yeah,
too.
100%. Like,
and brainstorm ideas and bounce it off them. They've got to be like, yeah, that's awesome, you know?
But yeah, exactly what you're saying. Like I get all the time people say, okay, you know, how do you have time, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, for me, man, I take my kids to school every morning. I put them to bed most nights. It's only if I'm not away. When I do go away, I leave them like, you know, Friday night and I'm back by Saturday morning. So people they might see the photo in front of the Sydney Opera House, but what they don't know is I was only there for 10 hours.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
it's what you said. Even as I asked you that question, I'm like, and you said it back to me, I'm like, oh yeah, exactly the same way.
Yeah. It's not that hectic.
No, it's not. It looks bigger online than it does in real life.
Yeah, it's not that crazy.
Yeah. So how long have you been touring for with bands now? Like how long has it been?
Mate, I reckon, I don't know, 15 years, 16 years.
And do you have like a one iconic gig, like your favorite gig that you've played?
Mate, there's been some absolute belters. Iconic, I mean, every band's kind of had its own iconic thing. With B&E, to be honest, we did Sydney 2022 when you guys were on the run at the Enmore. That was probably the best B&E show I've done, I reckon.
Yep.
Just the vibe in there was unbelievable. Even Adelaide on the Flying Colours tour. Yep. Melbourne was there. That was unbelievable. But we obviously did the Forum with Melbourne, and Coolio was there.
Yeah, I was there that night.
That was cool.
Man, that was so random, right? Like,
I
I remember walking downstairs and it was Joey Nima, who I've had in this potty.
Yep.
And he just pops his head into the green room and he's like, do you want to meet Coolio? I was like, yeah. What do you mean? No, I don't want to meet Coolio.
Yeah.
And then he came in and then he was with you boys for a bit and then you guys performed.
Yeah.
And then he was just hanging out with us in the green room for like 45 minutes. He was showing me like all his pokey wids, like from when he was in Vegas. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was just hanging out with him, but I was like, this is fucking so odd. Like listening to Gangster's Paradise when I'm 14.
Yeah.
Now I'm hanging out with Coolio in the green room and he's showing me photos of his grandkids. Yeah. Like, but I guess that's the amazing experience that you get on tour, right? That's what makes it so fucking special.
Stuff like that's cool. Just unexpected stuff.
He came out too with you guys.
He came out, yeah. We did Gangster's Paradise. So he called his tour manager. He's friends with the boys, and he called SO, I think. He's like, "Can you put Coolio on the door?" He's like, "Who is that? Like, who's your mate?" Coolio. He's like, "No, it's Coolio." He's like, "The Coolio." He's like, "Yeah." So I went from like putting him on the door to, "Do you think he'd want to maybe come out?" "Yeah." "Do you think maybe he'd want to do Gangster's Paradise?" He's like, "Yeah, absolutely." So then bang, sent me, Bliss got me the track. I kind of got it all sorted, put it into the system, learnt the drums, like pretty much note for note. And then, Coolio came out and it was just, you could tell he'd done it a million times.
Yeah.
Like he had all the movements, like he gets on his knees in a certain part. And the boys were just lapping it up. Like they were doing like little old school hip hop dances and stuff together that Coolio knew. and he was.
He took off like his Gucci top and threw it in the crowd. Remember?
Yeah. And he's doing like little sidestep dances and stuff. And the boys, they're old hip hop heads, and they knew exactly. Like I don't know what the dance was, but they know what it was. So they were doing little dances together, and like just off, just on the
on the spot.
On the spot. So mate, that was sick. I had some mates there that night too, and they were just losing their mind.
Because I'm pretty sure he passed away maybe 3 months after.
Oh man, maybe even like a month after.
Because
it was pretty close.
I remember like met him, and then he passed away, and I was like, what? That's so wild.
It was crazy. I saw him at the airport maybe a week later. I think we were in Queensland or somewhere that was 2 flights away, and I'd done the 2 flights, got back, got my drums on the trolley. I'm wheeling them out to my car, and it's me in the terminal and one other person. And as the person gets closer, it's fucking Coolio. You know what I mean? I'm like, and as COVID times, I had my mask on and stuff. I'm like, Coolio. He's like looking at me. I like, drop my face mask. I'm like, DK, Bliss and SO drummer. You know, he meets everyone all the time.
Yeah, of course.
I made it obvious. Like, the drummer from Bliss and SO. It's like, hey, bro, what's up? He's like, man, I've got a show tonight at Festival Hall. Come down. I'll put you on the door. I'm like, yeah, sweet. He's like, oh, I don't have my phone on me. He's like, my missus is in a taxi in the taxi rank outside. It's a yellow car. Go get her. I'll put you on the door, catch up with you. And I'd just come home from 2 flights. I was like, man, it's all good. Like, I'm just going to go and chill. But it was pretty funny, man, because he didn't have his phone on him.
Yeah, it was funny because he hit up the guys I was with, and he was like, well, let's make music together.
No way.
And then we couldn't get in contact with him because he didn't have his phone on him. So
it's
the exact same
like
thing.
He literally didn't have his phone
and then
on
it ended up not happening.
Yeah, and he was trying to be super nice to me, and I'll get you on the door. Let's hang out.
He was, to be fair, he was super, super nice.
Yeah.
So other than that, like, is there like a bigger show? Like, I know you talked about before you were working with the drummer from Parkway Drive. Like, can you run us through that?
Oh, mate, that's I'm going to have to keep that short, but that was unbelievable. That was Supercross, Marvel Stadium. I know the guys that run that, Adam Bailey and Sando at the time. They wanted to do music, and I kind of presented to them this thing. I was like, let's do a drum off, random as, like, name another time there's been a drum off at an event. And they're kind of young and cool, and they got it. They knew, B&E, they knew Parkway Drive, and they were all about it. But, mate, that was about 2 months of planning.
Yeah, wow.
From me. So Ben actually has you can look it up online. He has a cage that his drums are like strapped into.
It rotates.
It goes upside down. It's on fire and stuff like that. So we basically built this drum duet around that. So like I'd go up on a riser, start like 16 bars of solo, then he'd do 16 bars of solo, spinning, and he'd end up upside down. There was meant to be a moment where I was up and he was upside down and we'd point at each other. And then we duet. He spins back round, I come back down, we end up back on the floor. So it was this whole thing. Anyway, he had that cage, and I was like, man, that's so sick. I need something to compete with him. I was like, this is, I can't compete with that. But what I came up with, I was like, I'll get an army tank and I'll put my drums on it, get someone to drive it out, and I'll fucking pull up next to him in a fucking army tank.
Did you actually?
Well, I found one. I got one. And they were like, the people who owned it were like, yeah, you can paint it, you can do whatever you want to it. I was like, this is going to be unbelievable. Army tank versus upside down drums on fire. Get out. Like, this is, I'm taking it to the next level. So anyway, I ringed the production manager. I was like, mate, just wondering, I've got an army tank. Can I drive it out on the field? It's obviously the footy field. And he's like, you need to find out how heavy it is, because you've got a 2-ton max. Otherwise you fall into the car park. Anything over 2 tons, you end up underground.
Like the Dark Knight.
Pretty much,
movie,
yeah. And it was 8 ton, this thing. So
Damn.
Yeah, I had to scrap it. Hilarious.
I feel like you got to do that now.
Mate, unbelievable idea.
That's such a sick idea.
Found one. I just get a board, chuck it on top, off we go.
Maybe Hello Sunshine straight to the middle of the crowd.
Yeah. Mate, we're not falling through the ground there. So, yeah, but anyway, mate, that was sick though. We had like heaps of fire and bloody fireworks shooting out of my drums and shit like that. And during that, I was just like, we didn't really get to sound check it with all the pyro. And I was mental note, just like, things are going to be going berserk. Just play, make sure you just get your drum sorted.
Yeah.
Don't be put off by the fire rockets coming out of your kick drum.
Was that hard? Because I've seen Parkway Drive play, and like it's insane. Like how much fire there is and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Oh, by the time we got to it, it was sweet. I practiced it heaps. So, so that was fine. With 28 days, speaking of like epic gigs, like we toured Afghanistan. Yeah.
That was one of my next ones I was going to roll into. So thank you for bringing that up for me.
Yeah. We toured Afghanistan. That was 2015. That was a while ago. But like basically they had a thing called Forces Entertainment. So and they'd done it for years where they fly bands and comedians over to perform for the troops.
And some of the bands, like I know Bliss and Esso because I know I'm not going to tell that story because it's his story, but Esso told me a wild story about him in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And so they went over there too. 28 days went over there. So what other? Do you know any other artists that were over there like during this?
No, not really. So B&E did it before I played for them, 2013, and then their manager basically got the gig for 28 days the following year.
And so the government would pay for cool Australian bands basically to go over and save the troops in Afghanistan.
Yeah, they don't pay you. They cover everything and they give you like PDs because they're not allowed to pay you. But basically,
so what's PD mean?
PDM's like a few $100 a day to live off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's like I want to get into this, right? So even the experience of flying to Afghanistan, like how does that go? Like how do you get?
Bro.
So how does?
I don't know how much that would cost.
But I mean, like when? So did you have to get like a certain sort of visa and stuff?
Yeah, I'll keep it real quick.
No, don't.
No, I'll all right. So the army take care of it. So basically, they don't.
So you're not going in a passenger?
No. They don't tell you where you're going. They tell you you're going to a war zone, but they don't really specifically tell you where because it could get out. Right? I think that's why. So basically, we flew to Darwin, like just in a normal plane, and then there was a whole bunch of soldiers there, and we jumped on like a chartered flight that was just full of soldiers. So then we flew to like an army base in the UAE, and that's kind of where you start, and then we play a few shows there for the troops. So like that's all in it's like a holiday.
Not in a war zone area.
Not in a war zone, just a bit of a holiday. Did a few shows around there. That was fun, and then. We jumped on a Hercules, which is outrageous because...
So Hercules is like a giant helicopter?
Nah, giant airplane.
Yeah.
Like a big war plane. Like it moves army tanks and shit like that. Yeah,
wow.
Massive plane, like giant. And it was so funny. There was like one pallet getting loaded onto it and it was like drums. Guitars and drums and stuff. So it was like one pallet in a Hercules and then you sit along the side like in the movies and it takes off pretty steep. And then you get in and like we had... people from the army like running the tour. Like we had this guy called Robbo, who was like an old soldier. And, as soon as we flew into Afghanistan, like airspace, like he's holding a machine gun. He's like, righto boys, put your safety vests on, bulletproof vests, helmets. As soon as you're in that space, you got to be like loaded up. Then there's like alarms going off, like apparently like there was missiles like locked onto us or something, but I think it just goes off if there's gunshots under you or something. Like, so the soldiers weren't concerned one bit, the people flying the plane.
What are you?
But there's alarms going off. There's Mick Malloy and Limo were there.
Oh, really?
Like there's alarms going off and they're like, what's that? And they're like, oh, it's just like a missile alert. And like, are you concerned about that? Or they're like, no, it happens all the time, mate. It's just probably someone shooting a gun and it's all good. And then, I mean, far out. There's a lot of stories with that one, but
so how long were you actually in the war zone?
In Afghanistan, I think we were maybe there for 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
So we did one at the Kabul airport, and our accommodation there had its like roof blown off previously by a rocket. It's crazy, man. So much stuff, happens there. Jay would obviously tell you all about it.
Yeah, but he was actually a soldier.
He was actually there. So we did Kabul, we did Kandahar, which was another massive base, and then we did another little base on the edge of Kabul. And to get to that one, we had to drive through Kabul. So like...
Pretty hairy, I'm guessing.
Hairy, yeah. So there's like maybe 2 Bushmasters, a truck with our gear in it, which is unarmed, like it's, is an easy target. And then there's 2 Bushmasters at the back. And we just kind of sat in like a Bushmaster, like you kind of sit in like this, can't see anything. There's a soldier on the roof with a massive gun.
Were you scared?
At times you're like, nothing will happen, but maybe something will happen. Like, we're here. And like, as soon as they left the base, they just hammer it through the city. They don't stop for anyone. So, because like all the, potential threats and whatnot. So they just hammer it. But we got to this little remote base and it was crazy, man. It had like multiple kind of walls around it. Like the further you got in, obviously the safer you were. But we eventually got in there and we did this show for maybe 100 Aussie troops and it was sick. We played on the back of an army truck and they had all their Bushmasters parked down the side, and they were just all sitting on their vehicles, just listening to 28 Days. Like,
dude, I don't think there's anything more iconic in my head than 28 Days playing in the middle of Afghanistan for the Aussie troops.
Yeah.
Everybody rip it up. Like, that's gotta. I wish I could live in that moment.
Yeah, mate, it was sick. That one felt really remote. Like the Kabul airport's a big airport, it's a big army base. Kandahar's a massive army base. Like, I think there was like 80,000 soldiers there or something. It's like huge, but this one was like small, man.
That's such a cool experience, hey?
Yeah, and it was interesting to see kind of what they do. Like the shifts they do, man. They do massive shifts, like hard.
What was the actual country like? Did you see much of it or not?
Yeah,
really?
it kind of looked like a really rundown,
like the movies?
Bali, like really run down. Like all the like buildings were broken, the windows were broken, things hanging off. Like, and it was funny as you drove through the city. Like some people would wave and some people would like spit at the vehicle, and it was quite mixed, you know, because you could kind of see out like this little window.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, I'm gonna have a look, and then there's, you know, blokes giving you the middle finger, and but yeah, when we got to that little army base, the soldiers, they were like, oh, we'll show you around, like show you around the place. They were super appreciative of us being there and stuff.
For sure, they would have been, a little bit of home.
And they were legends, you know, they're all legends, and so they're giving us a rundown of this base, you know, and the guy doing it, he's like, you know, this is the medical room. So, you know, before he took us in there, he's like, you know, a little while back, we had one of the local Afghani army guys who were on the Aussies team turn and shoot some people or whatever. Like, they had a really bad incident there. And they were telling us this, like, in detail and stuff. And we were all like, fuck, I can't believe that happened here. Like, that's crazy, because it was a pretty small base. And he was showing us all the spots where there was guns happening and shots and whatnot. And then he takes us into the medical room, which is like a pretty small room. And he's like, you know, can you imagine all these soldiers coming in one by one, like being hit by bullets and stuff, the chaos, because he was there, he was the medic or whatever. And then we're in there just going, fuck, this is crazy. And then next minute, the doors open. There's a guy on a stretcher covered in blood, screaming, with soldiers going, get out the fucking way, get out the way, get out the way. This guy's screaming his guts out. And we're bang, straight out of there. I'm fucking out of here. So we leave. And
so this is after the gig?
No, this is the day we get there. They're giving us a tour, showing us around the place, telling us the stories and stuff. And then this happens. I'm like, I'm out of this room, man. I'm straight out. Then the soldiers grab us. They're like, nah, get back in there, boys. You got to put your training to use. Go and help him. So it was like a gag, right?
Oh, was it?
yeah, full gag. Like, we're just going, I can't believe this shit's happening. What's happening out there? And then we get in there and there's this soldier, like full acting, man, screaming, blood squirting out of his eye and shit. And
I was not expecting that.
Yeah, fully like screaming. He's going, my pocket, my pocket, my pocket. Like yelling in my face. I'm kind of like a bit bedazzled by the whole thing. There's all these soldiers around us. He goes, my pocket, my pocket. He's like, reach in my pocket. I'm like, oh, and he reaches in his own pocket, pulls out a condom full of milk and slaps me in the face, you know, and all the soldiers just fucking erupt.
That's hilarious.
They erupt.
Oh, it's good to know the old Aussie humour doesn't drop off even in a war zone.
Mate, so that was pretty funny. But yeah, we fully had to do training. So when we landed in the UAE, we did like 3 days of training, which all the soldiers have to do before they go there. So that was pretty full on.
Yeah.
Like the stretchers had blood and stuff, like proper.
Yeah, well, it's a war zone, right?
Shit. Yeah. So that was hectic.
That's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
So the last one I want to know, because we talked about it in pretty depth at the beginning, but the unwritten law thing. So tell me that. How does that go about?
Oh, mate, unbelievable. So favorite band of all time, 15 years old, Unwritten Law, Sum 41, Goldfinger, playing in Geelong, random.
That's a good lineup, man.
Unbelievable lineup. So I used my mum's credit card.
What venue?
The Lyric, I think it was called. It used to be a church.
No, I don't know.
Old church or something. I don't know, but it was an old church. Anyway, bought tickets, underage, got a lift down there for a mate, walk up to the security guard. Actually, before we even get there, I had like bum fluff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I got mum's mascara and I painted my mustache black, thinking it was like, you know, I was tricking the guards.
Yeah.
And me and my mate Andy, we walk up to the door, you know, with the tickets. Security guard, where's your ID? Oh, I left it in the car, mate. Sorry, I'll go and get it. tells us to leave. Obviously, we're underage, and we're out the front, and we meet these girls, and they're like, "Oh, we know Unwritten Law. We'll be able to get you in." Like, sweet. We've got nothing else to do. We'll hang out with these chicks. Like 15 minutes goes by, nothing. Next minute, Tarago pulls up, Unwritten Law, 2001, Unwritten Law peak.
Yeah, peak. Big day out, peak.
Yeah, get out of the van. Singer Scott, he's like, right, I need backstage passes for you, to his tour manager, just like names us like 7 kids or whatever. Gets us backstage passes, walking to the venue, going to the band room, Sum 41 sitting at a table here, Goldfinger are playing. I'm having a beer with the singer from Unwritten Law, like my hero, just like an absolute, just like unbelievable stuff.
Yeah, like actual, yeah.
Losing my mind. And then I guess kind of from, not really from there, but, as I grew up, he knew 28 Days. 28 Days toured with Unwritten Law. He knew Bliss and SO. So I kind of just spoke to the singer a little bit over the years, and then years later, I eventually played for the band.
So did he remember you coming through that backstage? And
Nah. I've told him that story. He loves it.
Yeah.
He loves it because it's pretty sick.
Yeah, it's a bad story.
He's like, I was like, man, I got this crazy story about you. He's like, was I a good bloke? I'm like, yeah, you were. He's like, oh, good.
Yeah.
But no, he loves that story, man. And it's just, that was cool as well, because that was the first time I actually met like
a rock star.
Yeah, fully. And it was funny because I remember him asking someone in his camp about merch, like how merch sales were. And I was like, oh, why are you worried? I was like, why are you worried about that? Like, you're a rock star. Like, I'd never really thought of
the business component
component of it, So that's,
and like merch pays such a big part, especially with bands. Like it funds tours.
Huge. So, but I mean, that was pretty sick. You know what I mean? As a kid to walk into that, it's just unbelievable.
That's insane, man. I can't even imagine what that would be like.
Yeah.
So now, what other than still obviously touring with the bands and stuff like that, I know you got DK Academy. You still doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, other than like when you're not on tour, what are you doing? Like, what else is it?
Yeah. So I mean, I teach a lot of drums with my drum school, but I work for Monster Energy as well, and I have done so for maybe 14 years.
Yeah. Wow.
I've been there forever.
As an ambassador.
No, I actually work there.
Oh, do you?
Full time.
Yeah.
Like,
okay.
Yeah.
You're like an actual OG.
I'm the second longest running Australian employee.
There you go.
Yeah.
And now they're dominating.
I started when the brand wasn't really known here, to be honest. Like, if you were into motorbikes or something, you'd know.
That makes sense, because I was always like, what's the correlation between you and like the extreme sport stuff?
Yeah.
Because I know I see you always there all the time. And I was like, I just saw you like some extreme sport drummer.
No. Well, it's so funny because I play all the Monster events.
Yeah.
So they've always been good to me. Like, I obviously work for them on the commercial side of the business, but then whenever there's events on, they just get me to play drums because it just makes sense. But I got hired at Monster through Behind Crimson Eyes. So Monster came to a festival. We played this underage festival at the tennis center years ago, and I met the guy that was running Monster Energy, and I went to school with his sister. My mate Jason, he's a DJ. I play gigs with him to this day. And then it just kind of started from there. But I saw trickles of Monster coming out before then. Like, I'd see it online here and there. And I was like, what's that? Like, that looks sick. Because it just looked cool.
Yeah,
the car looked cool. The clothes looked cool. And then, one thing led to another. And here I am 14 years later.
Still working with them.
And they're great, man. Like, they let me do the drums. Like, it'd be pretty annoying to hire someone like me because obviously when B&E's on tour, I'm away Thursday, Friday. Then the following week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's pretty disruptive at times.
For sure.
But the company's big enough to handle it, obviously. So that's kind of what I'm doing on as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's next? Anything like big things? I know you said you're touring with Story of the Year later this year.
Yep.
Any other things on the horizon that are coming up?
I mean, there's heaps coming up with B&E, Bliss and SO. Lots coming up with Bliss and SO.
There's always lots going up.
Lots coming up. Yeah, it's going to be another...
They're doing a new album, aren't they? Can't say.
Yeah, I think it's... I mean, they're always working on music.
Yeah.
So they got just music up to their eyeballs, mate.
Love it.
So...
Cool. I think we'll wrap it up there, man. Thank you so much for coming down, dude.
Cheers, brother.
That was insane. I know we've been talking about it for about 3 or 4 weeks, so appreciate it. Lastly, I've got to do my sponsor, which is not Monster Energy Drink, but shout out to Monster Energy Drink. So WP Shots, without them, this podcast wouldn't happen. I'm sure you've seen it. As you said, we talked with one another on the social media and whatnot. So this bottle is yours, and thank you, WP
Mate,
Shots, for making this happen.
I am that excited to rip into this.
Get stuck into it. Everyone.
What percentage are we talking here?
18%, bro.
80%.
I don't know if you know this or not, but they're actually stocked at all good independents and first choice in Liquorland.
Mate, that's where you want to be, those ones.
Exactly, yeah. So you can do the old 28 days of that one, and you can everybody rip it up. Thanks, DK, for coming down, bro.
Legend. Good to see you, man. Thanks for having me. Cheers, fella.